This is the fresh perspective. What you're about to hear is not an explanation, it's a reflection. There's no rush, just listen, and let it meet you where you are. In the first video, or let's call it reflection, we talked about a prison, an invisible prison, not made of iron, not locked by guards, but built piece by piece by the way we see the world. And now we have to ask something harder, something more honest. If it's truly possible to escape, why do so few people ever experience it? I mean, really, why? I looked at my cousin sitting across from me and I could see it. That quiet desperation, that hope mixed with exhaustion. I was wondering how best to make this point clear to him. We had taken a first step together, and now we needed to move slowly. Peacefully, carefully, so he could truly get the point. Because if he understands this, if anyone grasps this idea, it will put smiles on people's faces. I guarantee it. So I continued. Imagine our world, I said. It has length, width, height. Everything we call real fits inside these 3 dimensions. I paused. Now tell me something. Do you really believe that the greatest prisons in this life, poverty, fear, limitation, circumstances that crush people, do you believe they're truly unbreakable? He didn't answer right away. I leaned forward. Or could it be that someone who sees differently, someone who exists beyond our 3 dimensions, could they just walk right through? His eyes flickered. Maybe, I said slowly. Maybe the question isn't, can we escape? Maybe it's, where are we looking from? My cousin just sat there, quiet, but I could see it in his eyes. That hope. The hope that maybe, finally, something would click. That this conversation might be the one that ends his search. Because he'd been stuck for years, trying, failing, trying again, and the same problems kept showing up, different faces, same prison. And I felt it again, that pressure inside my chest. I have to help him understand this. This wasn't just an interesting idea. This was the understanding. The kind that could lift someone into a completely different way of living. Or slip right past them if I didn't say it right. I wasn't worried about his intelligence. No. I was worried because we all of us, cling so tightly to what we've accepted as real. And breaking that grip, that takes care, subtlety. Inside, I kept telling myself, slow down, say it plainly, don't rush. He may understand, just keep going. I looked at him and said, listen, this is not about clever ideas. This is not about geometry or science fiction. This is about how life actually works. I could see him relax a little. And I'm going to use whatever I can to paint this picture for you, I said. Just bear with me. Okay? Okay? He nodded. Okay, good. So I continued. We live inside rules we didn't choose, I said. Rules handed down by habit, by culture, by fear, by repetition. And at some point, we just accepted them as final. I paused. Most people already sense something's missing. They work hard, they try, they plan, they improve themselves, but something still feels stuck. He was nodding now. Not because they're lazy, I said, but because. I stopped. How do I say this? It's like asking a smaller world to explain something that doesn't exist inside it. His brow furrowed slightly. I know, I said. I know that sounds strange, but I'm about to show you what I mean. I took a breath. Let me try it this way. I said, let me use simple math, something you already know, to explain something you don't yet know. He leaned in. Imagine a world, I said slowly, where only natural numbers exist. Just positive whole numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. That's it. That's all that exists in that world. I looked at him. Do you understand? He nodded. Good, I continued. Now, in that world, if you ask the question, what is 3 minus 10? It would be an absurd question. I let that land. Not because the question is wrong, but because that world has no space for the answer. Negative numbers don't exist there. They can't even be conceived. That answer exists outside that universe. His eyes widened slightly. So in that world, I said, 3 minus 10 is impossible, cannot exist. Anytime a smaller number tries to subtract a bigger one, impossible, always. I paused. This was the key. But what if, I said softly, what if we step into a higher dimension, a higher world, the world of integers? He was listening hard now. In the world of integers, I said, there are positive and negative whole numbers. That's what exists there. And suddenly, I smiled. Suddenly the impossible becomes simple. 3 minus 10, it equals 97. I watched his face. He wasn't frowning, he was leaning in. Yes, I felt a rush of hope. The answer existed all along, I said quietly. It just didn't exist in the smaller world. But even this world of integers, I continued, even it has limits. He looked curious. Because if you ask, what is 1 divided by 2, it doesn't make sense there. Not because the answer is unreal, but because fractions, they don't belong at that level of understanding. They're not conceivable, so they're impossible. I let the silence sit for a moment. Do you see what I mean? I asked gently. He was thinking. I could see it working in his mind. Now, I said, remember what we said in the first video? If a person in the 3rd dimension can free someone trapped in the 2nd, then a person in the 4th dimension would see openings we cannot even conceive. I paused, and a 5th would free them all. His eyes were wide now. That means, I said slowly, that means if you were imprisoned in our world, locked in the most secure prison on Earth, thick walls, armed guards, no conceivable way out, someone from a higher dimension, from the 4th or the 5th, they would see a clear opening. Because it exists. I leaned forward. A higher level doesn't struggle with what a lower level cannot contain. It simply sees beyond it. I let that sink in. Then I said something I knew he needed to hear. Most people don't suffer because life is cruel. They suffer because of what they believe is possible. His face changed. And over time, I continued, those thoughts harden into walls, and we become caged by them. And it solidifies into our daily experiences. I paused. Sometimes a question doesn't get answered, not because the answer is false, but because it doesn't belong to the level asking it. My cousin was quiet for a long time. Then he asked the most honest question of all. The question I was waiting for. So, he said softly, how does this help me? How does knowing this change anything in my life? And I smiled, because now we had arrived at the heart of it. This is why so many people feel exhausted, I said. They're not weak. They're not failing. They're just pushing where what's really needed is expansion of perspective. I looked him in the eyes. No amount of effort can produce an answer that doesn't exist at that level. Just like the smaller world cannot explain what only a wider understanding can hold. He exhaled. We're taught to fight reality, I said. To push harder, to struggle more, to break through walls. But walls, I paused. Walls are not broken from inside the same dimension that built them. Silence. A 2-dimensional being cannot fight its way upward, I said quietly, because upward is not conceivable in that world. It must be lifted by a perception that already exists above. To escape a prison, I said, you don't attack the walls, you change the level you're living from. I let that sit. This is not passivity, I said. This is intelligence. The moment your understanding widens, the limitation changes shape. It may still exist, but it no longer defines you. He was staring at me now, really staring. This world trains us to operate only within what we see, I said. But life doesn't originate here. When he asked that question, how does this help me? I knew he was ready for the next step, the critical step. But I had to be even more careful now, even more subtle. Life flows through dimensions, I said slowly. Not from matter upward, but from awareness downward. The inside controls the outside. His eyes flickered with something. Recognition, hope, I wasn't sure yet. That morning, I said, before you arrived, I did what I always do. I sang Hugh. He knew what that was. Not as a request, I said, not as a demand, but as listening, as surrender, as love. I paused, and when listening deepens, when awareness softens, perception widens. I looked at him. And when perception widens, what once felt impossible quietly loosens its grip. People spend years trying harder, I said, when clarity was all that was needed. I let that echo. I want you to feel this, I said. I need you to understand this. There is a freedom that does not come from fighting life, it comes from seeing life differently. He was so still now. Some problems don't need solutions, I said softly. They need you to raise your consciousness, because when you rise above a limitation, it no longer has the same authority over you. It still exists, but it no longer defines you. I paused. Then I said something I knew would puzzle him. A key. A key I needed to place gently in his hand. What if reality itself, I said slowly, is not fixed? He blinked. What if it's flexible? What if the world we call solid is actually shaped by what flows through it? He looked at me, thoughtful, silent, and that was exactly what I wanted. Because now we were ready to go further. I couldn't tell what he was feeling. Maybe he sensed he was close to something, close to an answer he'd been groping for his whole life. Maybe he was beginning to understand what it really takes to live in harmony with life. But whatever it was, I knew. The next step wouldn't be theory, it would be demonstration. And I was excited. God, I was excited, and I was hopeful, so hopeful, that he'd be ready to absorb it. If this reflection spoke to you, you might want to sit with it a little longer. You can continue with the next part whenever you're ready. This is The Fresh Perspective. Thank you for listening.